Hello everyone, welcome back to the Strange Night podcast channel. Episode 1, The Call from the Louisiana Swamp. The story opens in the heart of the Atchafalaya Basin, Louisiana, where the air is thick with the smell of swamp mud and decaying leaves. 3 film students, Mark, Sarah, and David, set up camp on the edge of the still water. They are here to film a documentary about local supernatural legends, specifically the Rougarou, the legendary Cajun werewolf. Mark, the main narrator, speaks with palpable excitement. The locals swear the Rougarou isn't just a fairy tale to scare children. It's an entity, a werewolf-like wrath, lurking within this dense fog. They say it guards something, a secret outsiders are not meant to know. Sarah expresses skepticism. It's just a way to explain away mysterious deaths. But tonight, we're going to find the truth. David's thermal sensor picked up a huge signature not far from here. They follow the signal deeper into the swamp. The chirping of the wild animals abruptly ceases, replaced by an unnerving silence. They find an old, overgrown trail, seemingly only traversed by something very large, with branches broken off at unusual heights. Along the path, David discovers a rickety shack, built from rotten wood and a thatched roof. Inside, everything is covered in thick dust, but in a corner, they find a makeshift altar. On it are strange artifacts, a skeleton bound with thorny rope, a massive fang, and a decaying leather-bound journal. Sarah attempts to read the journal. It's written in archaic French, interspersed with bizarre symbols. She translates a trembling passage. The world forgets us. We offer sacrifice to keep it here. Fresh blood, under the full moon, is the promise. The guardian is hungry. Never anger him. As Mark films, he hears a rustling sound from outside the shack, like something heavy slowly walking. They hastily flee the shack. The twilight has faded, and the darkness consumes everything. They decide to head back to camp, but immediately get lost. David's compass spins wildly. In the dark, they begin to hear savage howling, unlike that of any wolf or animal they know. The howls echo, seemingly coming from multiple directions at once, as if they are surrounded. Mark feels a gaze fixed upon him. He turns, shines his flashlight, and briefly glimpses 2 amber spots of light flickering between the reeds. He screams. All 3 start running for their lives. David, running last, slips and falls. As he tries to get up, he smells a putrid odor, like burning sulfur and raw meat. He turns around and sees a colossal black shadow over 7 feet tall, with the form of a half-man, half-beast, standing on 2 legs, its eyes glowing red like embers. David's scream is choked off. Mark and Sarah make it back to the camp. They call for David, but there is no reply. They find David's backpack lying on the ground, his camera still recording. They play the last segment of the footage. The screen is dark, only featuring David's ragged breathing, and then a deep, almost unearthly growl. This is followed by the sound of bone breaking and a long, sputtering screech. The footage ends with a loud thump, as if the camera was thrown. The next morning, Mark and Sarah search desperately. They do not find David. Only something horrific. Giant footprints, deeply pressed into the mud, leading straight into the deepest part of the water. The tracks are not those of a wolf, but are rough-hewn, human-like, yet twice the size. Sarah picks up a torn piece of David's shirt, stained with mud and fur. Mark stares into the swamp, where the water is faintly bubbling. He whispers, his voice trembling. The Rougarou isn't a legend. It's a gatekeeper, the keeper of an ancient secret. And we woke it up. It took David, not to eat him, but to protect something deep below. They leave, carrying the terror and the old journal. The episode concludes with a shot of the camera, tossed haphazardly in the mud, its recording light still blinking, capturing the sounds of moving water and a distant growl. The Rougarou's secret has been revealed, but the price was too high. Episode 2: The House on Moonlight Avenue. The story shifts to a quiet suburban neighborhood lined with ancient maple trees in Massachusetts. Alex and Emily, a young couple, have just bought a huge 3-story Victorian house with an old Gothic aesthetic. The house, known as Blackwood Manor, was sold at an unbelievably low price due to its horrifying history. A family massacre that occurred in the 1890s, where the father murdered his wife and 3 children before committing suicide in the study. Emily, her voice full of excitement, "This house is beautiful, Alex. Everyone says it's haunted, but those are just rumors. We're going to make it modern, cozy." Alex, trying to sound optimistic, still feels a chill down his spine. "I hope you're right. Last night I heard someone playing the piano. I thought it was noise from the neighbors, but there are no houses close enough. From the very first night, they feel a cold presence." The phenomena start small, but gradually become terrifying. Midnight piano. Every night at 3 a.m., they hear the old piano in the living room playing a sad, agonizing tune. When they rush down, the piano is closed, and not a single key has moved. Flickering shadows. Emily constantly sees hazy, tall, and thin figures gliding across the corners of the hallway or standing silently at the bottom of the stairs. She blinks, and they vanish. Familiar scents. Both smell the overpowering scent of old rose perfume and stale tobacco in the master bedroom, although they've never used those things. One evening, while Alex is doing repairs, he discovers strange carvings appearing on the old, peeling wallpaper. They are ambiguous geometric symbols, drawn with a dark brown liquid, almost like dried blood. Emily becomes increasingly distraught. She starts talking to an invisible friend she calls Eleanor, the name of the murdered wife. While searching for the house's old blueprints, Alex finds a hidden detail, an unmarked void right beneath the kitchen. Driven by curiosity, he and Emily tear down a section of the cabinetry and find a small, oak door leading down to the cellar. The cellar is dark and frigid. The secret room is located deep within it, sealed with a rusty padlock. When they manage to open the door, the room is filled with horrifying objects. A large book, chained shut, with a cover made of human skin, or what looks like it. Rusty blades and extinguished black candles. A circle drawn in white chalk on the floor, at the center of which is a small stone pedestal. Alex realizes it is a ritual chamber, where dark ceremonies were performed. He finds an old, handwritten document, not belonging to the murderous father, but to someone else. The content reveals a terrible truth. The father was not insane. He was manipulated by a cult, forced to sacrifice his family to keep the spirit of the Blackwood demon at rest. The souls of the victims were not the ones trying to harm them, but those trapped and screaming for liberation. While reading the document, Emily suddenly stands motionless. Her eyes become vacant, soulless, no longer holding her own fear. She begins to speak in a deep, gravelly old man's voice. "You have disturbed my resting place. I am the hunter. These souls are my possessions, and now you will also be a part of this house." Alex looks up in terror at the ceiling, where his shadow is strangely elongated. He realizes the entity haunting them is not the victims, but the spirit behind the massacre, a malevolent entity that used this house as a gateway. Instinct tells Alex to flee the room. He pulls Emily, who is struggling against him with unnatural strength. As they run up the stairs, they hear the man's chilling laughter echoing throughout the house. When they finally escape and call the police, they look back at the house. The second-story window, where the children's room used to be, is wide open. A small, pale, gaunt hand slowly drops a white handkerchief to the ground. It is the farewell of the trapped spirits. The story concludes with Alex and Emily watching the house from afar. It stands there, silent and mysterious. They escaped, but they know the spirit of the hunter is waiting for the next occupants. Episode 3: The Curse of the Devil's Road. The story centers on Devil's Road, a secluded and pitch-black stretch of highway in New Jersey, infamous for inexplicable car accidents and mysterious disappearances. Legend has it that the road is cursed by the spirit of a witch who was brutally executed there in the 18th century. The main character is Jake, a long-haul truck driver who has heard all the ghost stories but considers himself fearless. Jake decides to take Route 13, the Devil's Road, to cut his journey short, despite the clock ticking past midnight. Jake turns on the radio, but there's only static and interference. He mutters to himself, "It's just an old dark road, no devils here." The moment Jake turns onto the Devil's Road, his truck's headlights begin to flicker strangely. The temperature in the cabin drops suddenly, forcing him to zip up his jacket. He sees an old rusted sign with a hard-to-read message scrawled in red paint. "Don't stop. Don't look." A moment later, Jake's headlights illuminate a figure standing in the middle of the road. It's a pedestrian, but abnormally thin, wearing an old cloak. As Jake honks and slows down, he realizes the person has no face. The face is just a hazy, pitch-black void. Jake slams the gas, swerving past the spectral figure. Right after, he glances in the rearview mirror and sees the shadow has vanished. But instead of feeling relief, he feels a cold anger spreading in the air. A terrifying howl rings out outside the cabin, sounding like claws scraping metal. Jake's truck begins to shake violently, not from poor road conditions, but from an invisible force trying to flip it over. Jake struggles to keep the wheel steady. He looks at the windshield and sees a deep scratch appear on the surface, as if something sharp has clawed at it. Then, the engine dies. The heavy truck drifts to the roadside and stops right at an empty lot, where a massive withered oak tree stands, its branches resembling twisted arms. This is the exact location where the legend says the witch was burned alive. Jake tries to restart the truck, but it's useless. In the dim interior light, he sees the blurred silhouette of a bound woman standing next to the tree. She isn't crying. She's just staring at him with eyes full of hatred. Paralyzed by fear, Jake cannot move. The witch's silhouette advances toward the truck, and Jake hears a cold, whispered voice in his mind. "You stopped. You witnessed. You must carry my curse." A truck window slowly rolls down on its own. Jake feels an icy blast of air pass through, and something small and hard is placed in his palm. In the morning, Jake wakes up, the sun already high. The truck starts normally. He is in the middle of a dense forest, miles away from the Devil's Road. Jake dismisses it as a nightmare until he looks down at his hand. Clutched in his palm is a small bone shard, carved with symbols he doesn't understand. Jake throws the bone away, but when he looks in his rearview mirror, he sees the ghost car with no lights from last night following him. It has no driver. The curse has been passed on. Jake has taken an object not of this world, and now he is marked. Wherever he goes, The Devil's Road will find him. Episode 4, The Gift from the Deadland. The story opens in Goldfield, an abandoned gold mining town in Nevada, where only dilapidated structures and an old cemetery with countless unmarked graves remain. The protagonist is Dr. Anna Reed, a young archaeologist, here to study the history of plague and mining in the late 19th century. Anna, her voice calm but academic. This place is called the Deadland because an epidemic wiped out most of the residents in 1895. They say the souls here don't rest, but crave to be remembered, to be taken away. While excavating near the old cemetery fence, Anna discovers a small wooden box, surprisingly well preserved in the dry sand. The box is crudely carved with strange symbols. Inside is a porcelain doll. It is tiny, dressed in a faded white lace dress. But the most frightening thing is its eyes. Its blue glass eyes stare blankly, yet seem to contain a dark intelligence. Anna brings the doll back to her makeshift motel room. She sets it on the table and begins her study. She finds a small piece of paper rolled up in its dress, on which only one sentence is written. "Make a wish, and it will listen." She laughs it off, thinking it's an old miner's prank. That evening, Anna's colleague, Dr. Ben, visits. He is struggling to secure funding for his project. As a joke, he picks up the doll and whispers, "I wish I could get that $50,000 grant right now." The next morning, Ben calls Anna in a state of shock. He received a notification from an anonymous donor agreeing to fund exactly $50,000. Anna starts to feel uneasy, but she remains skeptical. She recalls an elderly woman in town who constantly complained about her neighboring girl being too loud and disruptive, always playing loud music in the middle of the night. Anna, half believing and half doubting, holds the doll and mutters, "I wish that noisy girl would just be silent forever." The next morning, Anna hears police sirens and an ambulance. The neighbor girl was found dead in her apartment due to a sudden and rare heart attack. The doctors confirmed it was natural causes, but Anna knows better. The girl was silent forever. Anna finds an old ledger in the town library, telling the story of a little girl named Martha, who died of the plague in 1895. Martha was buried with her favorite doll. People said Martha was a lonely child, often whispering little wishes and curses to her doll. Anna realizes the doll is not a magical tool, but a vessel for Martha's soul. The little spirit is fulfilling the wishes, but in a horrible, twisted, and deadly way. Anna's life begins to turn into a living hell. She constantly hears the small, cold giggling of a child, echoing from where the doll is placed. Anna calls Ben, desperately pleading for his help. But Ben, intoxicated by his sudden funding success, fails to recognize the danger. He picks up the doll and says smugly, "Don't worry, Anna. I wish I could keep this lucky charm forever." Immediately after, Anna hears Ben's horrific scream over the phone, mixed with the sound of breaking glass and scraping. Ben is dead. Martha's spirit granted his wish to keep this lucky charm forever by making him the doll's next offering. Anna stares in terror at the doll on the table. Its glass eyes seem to sparkle a little more brightly. She knows she has to end this. She runs to the cemetery, to Martha's grave. She holds the doll and whispers, not to the doll, but to the child's spirit, "I wish you find peace. I wish we never meet again." Anna reburies the wooden box exactly where she found it. She turns away without daring to look back. The episode ends with the doll sinking into the darkness, but just after the last layer of sand is filled, the wooden box begins to vibrate slightly. A cold, childlike voice whispers from underground, "Your wish has been granted." Episode 5, The Strange Lights over Arizona. The story centers on 4 friends, Liam, Chloe, Sam, and Noah, who are obsessed with conspiracy theories and UFO phenomena. They are camping deep in the Gila Bend area of Arizona, a region known for decades of strange aerial light reports, often called the light hunting zone. Liam, the group leader, speaks enthusiastically. People call this the Vanishing Valley because of all the disappearances here. But we are going to prove those lights are spacecraft. We have infrared cameras, frequency detectors, and a radiation counter. Tonight, we're going to catch the proof. As the sun sets, the desert becomes chillingly cold and silent. Sam, checking the detector, suddenly sees the radiation levels spike for no apparent reason. He experiences a fierce headache and ringing in his ears. Chloe tries to reassure him. "It's just magnetic interference, Sam. We're near an old Air Force base." But Liam looks up at the sky and sees something that is definitely not a plane. Around 1 a.m., a strange blue, green, and red light begins to flicker on the horizon. The light does not follow a flight path, but hovers, moving abruptly and in absolute silence. The group is stunned. They set up their cameras and recorders. All their electronic devices suddenly shut down, except for an old battery-powered analog voice recorder. The white noise from the recorder is suddenly interrupted by a series of chaotic sounds, like metal grating against itself, interspersed with unidentified audio that sounds like reversed or distorted voices. As they stare at the light, it abruptly vanishes. The group is plunged into thick darkness, illuminated only by starlight. Noah, who is outside the tent, screams. He sees a thin, almost invisible electrical grid of light beginning to encompass their campsite. In a panic, Liam and Chloe rush out of the tent. They find the tent ripped open, and Noah is gone. No footprints, no blood, just disturbed sand. Sam, still inside the tent, suddenly convulses and grabs his head. He groans. "They are talking to me, not with words, but with images." He describes violent, rapidly flashing images, cold surgical procedures, non-earthly symbols, and a gaunt face with large, black eyes. At that moment, they hear footsteps, not human footsteps, but a heavy, irregular thump in the sand. The footsteps approach Sam's tent. Chloe and Liam hide behind a rock, witnessing a tall, thin entity moving staggeringly, as if unfamiliar with Earth's gravity. It is not the classic alien image. Its skin is wrinkled, grayish blue, and it has long, spindly arms. The entity stops outside Sam's tent, and a chilling shriek echoes. When Sam suddenly falls silent, Liam and Chloe decide to act. They scream and throw rocks. The entity turns to look at them, and a blinding white light emanates from its chest. Both are thrown backward, feeling a searing heat on their skin. When they wake up in the morning, the entity is gone, and Sam is also missing. Their campsite is scorched. On the ground where Sam's tent stood, a circular symbol is deeply burned into the sand. It is an indistinct yet menacing sign. Liam and Chloe return carrying the old voice recorder. When they listen to the final moments of the recording, they realize the chaotic sounds were not alien voices, but distorted Spanish prayers interspersed with a hateful growl. They go to the hospital. Both are suffering from first-degree burns, not from fire, but from radiation. When the police and military arrive at the site, they find no evidence of aliens or human activity, except for one thing. The scorched sand forming the symbol is not an alien inscription. It resembles an ancient sigil, a way to either seal or summon an entity from the depths of the desert. They went looking for aliens, but what they found was something far older and more supernatural. Episode 6. The Promise Beneath the Lake. The story takes place at Wallowa Lake, Oregon, a deep and frigid body of water. Beneath the surface lies the small town of Eldridge Landing, which was completely submerged in 1930 after a dam broke. It is said that the souls of the town's residents were never recovered, and they continue to live their lives at the bottom of the lake. The protagonists are Jake, Sam, and Maria, 3 professional divers on an underwater photography project. They are equipped with high-powered cameras and floodlights. Jake, the main narrator, speaks with a deep, solemn tone. The water here is bone-chilling cold and pitch black. It feels like diving into a massive mass grave. We were warned not to make noise. The locals say, if you make a sound, you break the peace, and they'll pull you down. They descend to a depth of 60 meters, where the pressure is immense and light cannot penetrate. With the aid of their headlamps, they begin to see the structures of Eldridge Landing. They swim past wooden houses, antique cars covered in moss, and a small schoolhouse. Everything is remarkably preserved in the cold water environment. It feels as if time has stopped. Inside the church, they see the pews still intact and an old Bible open on the pulpit. When Jake shines his light on it, he swears he sees a blurred figure glide past a pew. But when he focuses his gaze, it disappears. Despite the frigidity of the water, they all feel a presence watching them. Not fish, but a conscious observation. While swimming along the underwater main street, Sam points towards a 2-story house. His headlamp illuminates a bedroom window. Inside the window, Maria sees a little girl with blonde hair, standing and looking out. The girl wears a white dress and waves at them. Sam tries to swim closer to film, but Maria pulls him back. The girl is not exhaling bubbles. She is not wearing a safety line. She is a spirit. Maria writes on her dive slate, "She is calling us." They decide to turn back. As Jake checks his safety line, he makes a terrifying discovery. His backup cable has been severed. The cut is sharp and clean, not due to rust or natural abrasion. Someone did this. All 3 begin their ascent in a panic, trying to maintain a slow speed to avoid decompression sickness. When they reach 20 meters, Maria suddenly stops. She looks down into the darkness and begins to giggle. She points to her mouth, signaling she is out of oxygen, and starts to remove her mask. Sam and Jake try to stop her, but she is unnaturally strong. Her voice crackles over the dive communication equipment. "Why leave? It is so peaceful here. They want us to stay. Forever." Sam tries to swim towards Maria, but he feels countless cold, invisible hands grabbing his legs, pulling him down. Jake, with all his strength, drags Sam to the surface and administers aid. They are forced to leave Maria behind. When Sam recovers, he only remembers one sensation: the profound loneliness of the souls at the bottom of the lake. They weren't malevolent. They were just lonely people who wanted company. The episode ends with a shot of Maria sinking into the darkness. Jake's underwater camera is still working and records the scene. As Maria reaches the threshold of the submerged town, the blonde girl from the window appears, smiles, and takes her hand, leading her deeper into the watery city. The promise has been kept. She stayed forever. Episode 7. The Revenge of the Native American Tribe. The story focuses on the Horizon Group construction company, which is launching a massive resort project at the base of the Bighorn Mountains, Wyoming. This land was once a sacred burial ground and hunting area for the Shoshone tribe centuries ago. Despite warnings from locals and tribal elders, the company proceeds with bulldozing the site. The protagonist is Thomas, the construction foreman, a pragmatic man who only believes in science and profit. He is overseeing the excavation for the foundation. Thomas, his voice annoyed over the phone. "No, old man, I don't care about your ancestors' spirits. This land is ours. If there's anything beneath this soil, it's dollars, not curses." Immediately after Thomas hangs up, the largest excavator suddenly stops working. When the workers check, they find the scoop blade strangely bent, as if it struck an incredibly hard object. In the following days, small accidents begin to occur. Workers fall from secure scaffolding, machinery short circuits inexplicably, and small fires flare up from nowhere. Things worsen at night. The construction site becomes shrouded in a cold fog, even on clear nights. The night guard, Old Joe, reports seeing tall, blurred figures moving in the mist, wearing ancient hunting attire. They say nothing, only stand and watch. When Joe turns on the site floodlights, the figures vanish, leaving behind an icy chill. Thomas dismisses it as hallucinations from the fog and fatigue, but he himself starts experiencing strange things. One night, while inspecting the area, Thomas hears a rhythmic, slow, drumming sound emanating from beneath the ground. The sound isn't physical, it's a rhythm echoing in his head. He feels a primal fear rising, as if he is the besieged intruder. The workers dig deeper for the main foundation. They uncover an ancient, intricately carved stone structure. At the center of the structure is a statue carved from a gigantic animal bone, resembling an eagle, with eyes made of black obsidian. This is the totem, something the tribe buried to seal away a certain power. Thomas, ignoring the protests of the local workers, decides to retrieve the statue to sell to a collector. The moment the statue is pulled from the earth, a deep roar, neither human nor animal, echoes, shaking the ground. That night, the wrath erupts. Thomas's nightmare. Thomas dreams he is being hunted across his own construction site. He is caught by warriors in animal hides, their faces painted black, and they have no eyes. They don't kill him immediately. They tie him to an old oak tree, similar to the tree in episode 3, but in a different setting, and force him to watch his construction site slowly burn. The catastrophe. The largest bulldozer automatically starts in the middle of the night, driving straight into the material storage area. The entire section bursts into an uncontrollable fire. The next morning, police and fire services arrive. The damage is immense. Thomas, waking up from his horrific nightmare, rushes to the site. He sees the totem statue left on the stone pedestal, surrounded by burnt debris. But it has changed. The obsidian eyes of the eagle are now oozing a black tar-like substance. On the remaining wall of the warehouse, black charcoal fingers have written a message in the ancient Shoshone language. A local worker translates it with a fearful voice. What is buried must rest. New blood will not appease this ground. Thomas finally understands. The revenge is not a single ghost. It is the collective fury of an entire people, stirred up by the desecration of a sacred burial ground. The Horizon Group retreats, declaring the project canceled due to irreparable damage. The episode ends with the shot of the scorched area being covered by fog. A gust of wind sweeps away the ashes, revealing large, bare footprints embedded in the black earth, leading straight into the deep woods. The land curse has won. The tribe's revenge is complete. Episode 8. The Missing Girl in the Red Light District. The story takes place in the French Quarter of New Orleans, specifically a narrow alley in the old red light district, where the red glow of neon lights mixes with the damp darkness. The protagonist is private investigator Leo Martel, a former police officer experienced in cases involving supernatural elements. Leo is investigating the disappearance of Marie, a young woman who vanished without a trace 2 weeks ago, after working at an old bar called the Bayou Siren. Leo, his narration gruff and weary. In New Orleans, They don't call disappearances crimes, they call them summons. And the Bayou Siren is a place that's always willing to answer. Leo arrives at the rundown lodging house located right behind the bar. It's dirty, devoid of natural light, and smells of cheap incense and mildew. The only person there is the elderly landlady, Maud, with dull, almost lifeless eyes and a perpetually eerie smile. Maud insists Marie left of her own accord, but Leo feels something is wrong. He searches Marie's room. It's empty, but under the rug, Leo finds strange items. Several old bent silver coins, a lock of black hair tied with red thread, a photograph of Marie with a voodoo symbol of a heart pierced by a dagger drawn over her face. In the room, Leo also finds Marie's small diary. The final pages are written in panic. She writes about hearing whispers, about time being stuck, and about being forced to serve a gatekeeper at the lodging house. Leo returns to the hallway and notices small symbols carved into the door frames and floorboards, a type of faded old Vive voodoo symbol used to imprison or summon spirits. Leo confronts Maud. He pressures her with evidence of black magic and rumors of trapped spirits. Maud suddenly stops smiling. Her eyes widen and her voice becomes chillingly sharp. No longer her normal old woman's voice. The girl hasn't gone anywhere. She's right here. She belongs to us. Maud reveals the horrifying truth. She and the lodging house are part of an old voodoo ritual to feed a malevolent Loa, spirit entity, by keeping young souls trapped in a spectral time loop. Marie is still alive, but she is in an older version of this lodging house, repeating her actions endlessly. Leo realizes the terrifying fact. The lodging house is not merely a building. It is a magical entity. Suddenly, the wall behind Maud becomes transparent, and Leo sees a scene from the past. Marie is standing there, repeatedly opening the door. She looks directly at Leo with terrified eyes, yet doesn't see him because she is trapped in her own loop. Leo knows the only way to free Marie is to break the loop. He searches Maud's room, where he finds an old copper key, supposedly the gatekeeper's key. When Leo touches the key, Maud screams. Her body begins to convulse, and her face distorts into a grotesque visage, not human, but that of an imprisoned entity. Leo rushes out of the lodging house. He uses the key to pry open Marie's room door once more. This time when the door opens, a blinding white light streams out. He sees the real Marie standing there. She looks at Leo, tears streaming down her face, and whispers, "Thank you for finding me." As soon as Marie steps out, the room behind her rapidly decays, the paint peeling and the structure collapsing into dust. The key melts in Leo's hand. Leo looks back at the lodging house. Maud is gone. The house returns to its old, dirty appearance, but the haunting feeling is gone. Marie is free. But as Leo leads the girl away, he notices a small scar on her wrist, shaped like the Vive, a sign that her soul had been touched. The episode ends with a shot of Leo and Marie leaving the red light district, but on a crumbling window frame of the lodging house, an old face with lifeless eyes briefly appears, smiling with satisfaction. The gatekeeper was not defeated, merely delayed. Episode 9, The Killer's Radio Station. The story centers on Elias Vance, a 25-year-old audio technician working at an old, soon-to-be-shuttered FM radio station in Chicago. Elias is tasked with scanning and eliminating all defunct frequencies. He is a solitary individual, obsessed with the mysteries of radio waves. One night, while sweeping the bandwidth, Elias discovers a long-dead frequency, 108.0 FM, suddenly coming back to life. It broadcasts no music or news. It emits only static and interference, interspersed with old audio recordings. Elias puts on his headphones and listens intently. He hears brief cries, pleas, and screams from multiple people. The sounds are incredibly real, incredibly painful. Elias realizes these are the voices of the victims, murdered by the Night Killer, a serial killer who terrorized Chicago in the 70s but was never caught. Elias digs deeper. He uses old equipment to clean up the signal and trace its source. A sealed-off cellar beneath the radio station. This cellar used to be the station's first broadcasting studio, shut down after an unexplained incident. As he cleans the audio, Elias begins to hear another voice, a deep, cold, almost whispering voice, talking to the victims in the recordings. It is the voice of the Night Killer himself. The voice starts to haunt Elias. He begins to see fleeting images in his mind. A dark room, a metallic table, and a gleaming knife. His work is affected. He becomes irritable and suffers from insomnia. He believes the Night Killer used this radio station to record his achievements, and somehow, his spirit became trapped within this frequency. Elias is compelled by an unseen force to broadcast the 108.0 FM frequency live. He believes this will expose the killer's crimes. He breaks the seal on the cellar. Inside is an old studio, everything covered in thick dust. Strange symbols are drawn on the walls with charcoal. In the center of the room is a vintage microphone, the type used in the 70s. When Elias touches the microphone, he feels a cold electric shock run through his body. The Night Killer's whisper echoes directly in his ear, stronger and clearer. "You found me. Now, you are my new voice. Tell them where to find joy." Elias realizes the horrifying truth. This frequency doesn't just contain the killer's soul. It's a spiritual gateway. The killer needs a host, a voice, to continue his work, and he chose Elias. That night, Elias prepares for the broadcast. He is completely controlled. Elias's colleague, Lena, a radio host, arrives at the station worried about him. She finds Elias sitting at the main console, his eyes bloodshot, preparing to flip the switch for the 108.0 FM broadcast. Lena tries to stop him, but Elias fights back fiercely. When he opens his mouth to speak into the microphone, the voice that comes out is not Elias's. It is the deep, terrifying voice of the Night Killer. The voice transmits chilling messages, instructing vulnerable listeners on how to find joy through violence. Lena, in desperation, grabs a nearby baton and violently smashes the vintage microphone. The microphone explodes in a puff of black smoke. Elias collapses to the floor, convulsing. The killer's spirit has been driven out of his body. After the incident, the police investigate and find the cellar. They discover that the old studio was not only a recording location, but also where the killer murdered and buried some of his victims, right beneath the floorboards. Elias survives, but he never speaks again. He is mute from the shock. The episode ends with Lena securing the cellar forever. She walks away, but as she goes down the hallway, she hears a deep voice whispering from the radio. The frequency is dead, but the wave never dies. The Night Killer is still out there, searching for a new frequency, a new voice. Episode 10, The Town with No Exit. The story begins with 4 friends, Marcus, Elena, James, and Chloe, a new group unrelated to Episode 5, on a camping trip in the remote Pacific Northwest, PNW. Due to a broken GPS, they take a wrong turn onto a muddy side road and drive into a small, unnamed town that does not appear on any map. The town is called Oak Haven. The name is carved on a dilapidated welcome sign. It looks ordinary: white painted houses, a small general store, and an old clock tower standing tall in the center. But it is absolutely silent. Elena, the most sensitive one, speaks with concern. No birds singing, no engine noise, no phone signal, no one moving. This town is deeply asleep. They stop at the general store. The cashier is a middle-aged woman, staring at them with wide, vacant eyes and a rigid smile. When James asks for directions out, she replies with a nonsensical phrase, "All roads lead home." The deeper they venture into the town, the more unnatural things become. Everyone is outside, but they are all frozen in place. A man is mowing his lawn, but the lawnmower is off, and he stands motionless, his hands still on the handle. A group of children is on a swing set, but they are all sitting still, their eyes fixed on the void. All residents have vacant eyes, showing no sign of emotion. They are not zombies, but trapped people. Marcus tries to restart the car, but it won't start. They decide to walk out along the road they entered on. After walking for about half an hour, they see a sign. It is the "Welcome to Oak Haven" sign. They have walked a perfect circle and returned to where they started. They try every street, every turn. Every road leads them back to the clock tower in the center of town. The town has no exit. James, an engineer, notices something strange about the clock tower. The clock has stopped precisely at 3:15 p.m. Elena recalls local legends about ghost towns, created by a spiritual entity to imprison souls. This entity is often tied to a core object or location, or a break into the clock tower. Inside, they find a small room. Instead of gears and springs, the clock is powered by a black object, like a large volcanic stone resting on an ancient stone pedestal. The stone is emitting an extremely low-frequency vibration, causing feelings of nausea and confusion. They find an old ledger, the journal of Oak Haven's mayor from the 1950s. The ledger describes how the villagers performed a harvest ritual to beg for prosperity from an outside entity. The entity agreed, but in return it took away their freedom and emotions, locking them in a perpetual loop. The journal ends with the line, "We achieved wealth, but we cannot leave. Time is dead. The stonekeeper forbids it." As they prepare to take the volcanic stone, the clock tower door bursts open. The general store cashier, Maud, sharing the same name as the lodging house owner in episode 8, implying a connection between malevolent entities, stands there, but she is no longer the rigid woman. Her face convulses, and a voice echoes throughout the tower, not her own. "You must not break the arrangement. You are the perfect additions. Stay here and serve." Marcus tries to attack, but Maud simply raises her hand. A wave of cold energy flows from the stone, causing Marcus to freeze, his eyes becoming as vacant as the other residents. Elena and James desperately follow the diary's description. They realize the entity is bound to the stone and must be destroyed. They grab an old sledgehammer found in the tower. They smash the stone. The moment it shatters into dust, a terrifying shriek rings out. Light flashes. The clock tower shakes violently. When they look around, Oak Haven is still there, but it is dissolving. The houses are decaying. The residents are gone, leaving behind only old clothes. Elena and James rush back to the car. The engine starts. They drive out of the crumbling town. When they look back, Oak Haven is just a fading patch of mist, and the road behind them is now back to simple dirt. They escaped, but when they check their phones, they see a single message sent at exactly 3:15 p.m. that day. "You have arrived." The final episode concludes with James driving, but when he looks in the rearview mirror, he sees a small crack on his own face, reflecting the exact crack on the volcanic stone. They escaped the town with no exit, but the town took a piece of their souls with it.